Well, before we get started on cleaning the filter, there's a couple of things I want to tell you. If you're not mechanically inclined, don't bother. Go find a local pool store, pool company, somebody near you that you can make friends with. Hire a pool guy, pool gal to come out, put them on a scheduler every 6 months. They clean your filter, they'll take care of you, and then you have someone to come out and make any other repairs that you may need in the future. You know, it's okay to get to know somebody. Second off, these filter containers are made of fiberglass, and although they look like plastic, a lot of homeowners will find themselves leaning against it with the softest part of your skin. You will itch all day. You'll get fiberglass. As they get older, you can see from the sun damage that it's reflective and you can tell it's fiberglass, but when they're newer, they do look like plastic. You can get a lot of extra years out of them. I do recommend getting a pool cover, a little cover that goes over them. I'll put a cloth over them or build a little cage. Anyway, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. This is a DE filter, and so the first thing we're gonna do is backwash it. Here's the backwash where the water comes out. This is where you would put your backwash hose. But for today, we have a rinse right here that the homeowner lets me use. So we're just gonna rinse it right here. So I'm gonna go to the computer, hit it to timeout. Oh. Twist, pull. See how it's starting to get gray? We want to let a bunch of that out. Try not to get my bag wet. So we showed you in one of the other videos backwashing, and so that's what we're doing right now, except we want a complete backwash. We're going to open the air gauge, the air release valve, and go ahead and let the tank drain. I'll let the drain catch up to me so the mess doesn't get too big. So we're going to release the air pressure. The water's going to go down and clean this out. There is, at the very bottom, one more bolt to go ahead and clean the bottom of the tank just to get the last of the little mess out of it. So make sure you do this. I like to do it every 6 months. What that allows you to do is, if people who wait a year, you're spending a lot of extra chlorine fighting this thing. So I would just rather not have so much chlorine in my pool. My kids are swimming and all that. You want your pool water, the better your pool water, the least amount of chlorine you have to put in there, the least amount of time you have to run on your time clock. So we like to keep this. If you're doing it yourself, do it an extra time during the year. You have a problem, don't backwash it, clean your filter. Backwashing is just an emergency situation in between filter cleanings. So this particular model has a 7/8 bolt on it, and we just remove that bolt. Take off the ring. Take off the lid. Now if the water's out, we can take the lid off. Let's go ahead, and while it finishes draining, there's a big O-ring for the lid here. We take that O-ring off, get the initial goop off of it. I'm going to go ahead and wipe it off, and I'm going to let this dry so the lube that we put on there has something to stick to. It's not all wet. So we'll put that somewhere to dry while we clean out the filter cartridge. Another thing about cleaning it regularly is this isn't so packed with gunk that sometimes I take these out and they weigh 80 pounds. It's like, come on, people. So give it a little twist. This particular one is a little heavy. Okay. Another thing to check for is make sure this O-ring here on the stem pipe didn't come off. This is called the manifold on top. These are the grids. We want to make sure this O-ring's on there, and we are going to lubricate it before we put it back on. So see how it looks all dirty? You're like, oh, that thing's filthy. We put DE in, call it clean dirt. And that's what makes these cartridges filter down to 10 microns and can catch the algae. Right now, if you don't put the DE back in, all you have is a giant expensive leaf catcher and major algae problems. So I'm going to show you something a lot of pool guys don't like, but you're cleaning this yourself. So we want to make it easy. If it's easy, you won't put it off. You'll just do it, right? First off, I recommend getting this power jet, this power washer wand. All the other power washers are the same size as the hose, but this one goes down and it's got a flared tip that sprays in a fan. So when I put it in here, it cleans both sides of this grid. A lot of guys are like, you have to take it all apart and wash it. You can. Some guys charge you $150 to clean it. Make sure he takes it apart, gets it all down there. But I've cleaned these, found a hole, had to replace the grids, taking it apart. It's just fine. But I do recommend this wand. Otherwise, you might want to take it apart if you don't have one. So I like to run around the outside first. See how it shoots that fan out? I'm going to get right in. It's going to get both sides of that grid. This particular wand is skinny enough that I can put it down these holes and spray down inside these grids where it's where you wouldn't normally be able to. Start cleaning it up a little from all that backwash. Gonna go down inside there. You know, you do this a few times, you get the hang of it. It's your pool. If you want to do it, you're trying to be on a budget, go ahead. Don't be afraid of it. If you have a different kind of filter, you can text me. I'll give you the tips and tricks to any of the filters you have. If you have one of the bad stay right or ugly filters and the cartridges or the grids go bad, then you got to spend a couple $100 fixing it. That might be a good time to consider replacing it. Let me see. Let me just get this over here so we got the water all draining nice down into this filter here, into the drain. You can see we're switching a lot of the pools now to the cartridge filters, even though they don't clean as low, because we can put clarifiers in and make them clean good. But the yards are getting so nice and so fancy now that there's nowhere to let this DE go, and it becomes quite a mess. So it's just nicer to have a cartridge. Really only catches you know, all the gunk. It doesn't have all this extra DE, as you can see. You're going to want to rinse that drain real good when you're done to make sure it's not clogging up the system. I am going to go back down into these grids, but for now I'm just trying to get the bulk out so it can keep rinsing. As you can probably tell, I'm not the greatest with video editing, so you may have to watch this whole thing, and I may be able to figure it out and cut a couple of minutes off for you. How's that? So we get inside the grid. Now those pool guys, they haven't even tried one of these ones, and they're telling me, oh, you have to take it apart and do all this. And now I'm going to go, starting from the top, I'm going to go down each section, and I'm going to go down it. Top to bottom between each grid, spraying both sides at once. This particular brand is easy if you want to just take these two wing nuts off and pull this manifold off. The bottom is made to where you can figure out how to put the grids back in real easy. They have little slots. But like you get the Hayward, it's got one screw down the middle. You have to hold both sides, which means when you flip it over, it all comes apart, like explodes on you. It's just ridiculous that after 50 years they haven't figured out how to put the bottom piece in, you know. So it could increase your filter cleaning time to hours. But I'm just showing you, this is quick, easy, I'm going to make it fast. There is time involved. The pool guys do charge for it because it's mostly just time. There's no tricks for cleaning a cartridge filter. You just have to sit there and go between every one of them. And that does take a while. Well, the trick is to have good water pressure. All right, so that is going to wrap that up. I'm going to come out here and do a little more cleaning here, but you want to rinse off where the O-ring goes. Like I said, I'm going to let this hose run for a minute. Push this down and so this is the wrench I like. You can use what you want, but it's a 7/8. It's a speed wrench, so it fits snugly down here. This, if the older ones, you may have to get a different style wrench to get on here, but this one has just the same size bolt as the thing, as the main release here. So that's one thing we like about Pentair. Other than they put the bolt under the backwash valve. It's kind of a little pain. You see how this cap That's nice. And it's big enough to get your hand on a little bit. We're going to rinse that out a little. Put this back on. If you can't get to it, you could just let the water, let the hose run in here for quite a little while, and you'll see it clear up. It'll all eventually come out of that backwash valve. Once again, this is the Pentair F&S Plus. Snug that down. Got us a little cleanup out here. Now we use, I use lube tube here. There's a few brands, but it's PTFE. You want a multi-purpose lubricant. You can get O-ring lubricant. It's not going to dissolve your O-ring. You know, putting Vaseline on there, that's a petroleum-based product, and that'll eat the O-ring up. We slap that on there. And what's left on our hand, lube this O-ring up here. Dry it off. This part, remember, goes on here, and there's a slot right through here. It's the only part. If you ever have to change these grids, there's one small one, and it's made to go so the stem pipe can go up here. Drop it on there. Push the backwash valve back down, and we are almost done. So what I like to do, this is one of the tricks, we use gravity as our friend. Go ahead and fill the water up in the tank. If you have some of the odd types of filters or old filters, you can't quite get the lid to sink down tight, and you can't get the band on it. What you can do is what I like to do. Fill the water all the way up. See it coming out now? Now, shut the top. Put it on there. So now, as the water is kind of draining out, or you can assist it with a little backwash, the gravity will pull this thing down nice and tight. So that's a trick to getting that nice and tight. This may take some practice for you, but getting this ring on here. It'll probably take you a lot of practice. One hand in this thing. I use my drill. I have to do a lot of them. You don't need that. And if you have a really high speed drill, you don't want to over tighten it. So always finish it off. Every time you're doing something, finish it off with the wrench so you can actually feel the tightness. I should have showed you, there's a spring on this bolt. What you want to do is, when the spring coils touch each other, it's tight. You don't have to tighten it down to foot-pounds. I just have a little rubber mallet. I tap around the O-ring to make sure it's good. I don't know if that sounds bothering you, but There you go. Voila, now let's start it up. We'll put the DE in the pool. Now I'm going to let the air out. Open the valve. One thing I do want you to do, when you take this ring off, take a felt pen and mark the bottom and the top. So when you put it back together, they meet up. You want these to kind of go on pretty close to the same all the time, because over the years that little warp a little bit, and if it's off, it's hard to, it'll start leaking and stuff. And you don't want that. I know you don't. So let's run over and get the DE in there. What is DE, you ask? I'm glad you asked. So there's a picture. Diatomaceous earth is the DE. It's the common one. If you want to clean your filter more often and have a really crystal clear pool, this one right here, this fiber clear, gets down to 2 microns, and it takes less than half of what that takes. But this is rock solid. It lasts a long time. I use this when we're in a yard where we don't have anywhere to clean. So let's go ahead, and I keep mine, because I do this for a living, in a bucket. We'll show you where to put your DE. If you have a cartridge filter, now is the time you're going to want to go ahead and squirt some clarifier into the pool. The clarifier will bring that DE pull down, or the cartridge pull down, from 20 microns to 10 microns like the DE filter. So we got the skimmer on the side of the pool. You see all your water's coming. This is where your water comes from the pool into here. And we have a 1 pound scoop. I'll link this scoop onto the website, and we'll link the water jet things too. So that was a 60 square foot filter. I'll show you where to find that. So it's going to take 6 scoops. 1, let it go down. If you're like, hey, it's not quite full, you don't have to worry about getting it exact. If you forget where you're counting, you're at 4, and you're like, oh, was that 3 or 4? Go ahead and put the extra one in. It's better to have a little more than not enough.